Our latest World Cup spotlight sets its sights on Africa, where South Africa is back on the world's biggest stage. Bafana Bafana have qualified for their 4th ever World Cup, making it back to the big dance for the first time since 2010. South Africa qualified after finishing unbeaten in their final 5 qualifiers to beat out Nigeria for the automatic World Cup berth. They also made history back in that 2010 tournament when they became the first African nation to host a World Cup. The most accomplished player in South Africa history is former Blackburn Rovers striker and FC Porto Champions League winner Betty McCarthy, the country's all-time leading goal scorer and the only South African to have won the Champions League. It is a World Cup spotlight of a massive nation, and on that note, we bring in a massive guest to talk about his country, Mbizo Mzamane.
Can we just say, I've been waiting for a long time to hear the Mbizo spotlight on South Africa. You know how long I've been waiting for this, Mbizo? You know how long I've been waiting for the details and what it means to the people?
Bro, talk to me a little bit, first of all, about the nostalgia. 2010, we were all younger, living, you know, the World Cup when we were kids. It was a different feeling, and now it kind of feels like full circle moment because you go back to Soccer City, Joburg, 2010, that World Cup inaugural match, South Africa versus Mexico. And now, 16 years later, it's Mexico versus South Africa in the Estadio Azteca. How are those vibes going, you know, running through your veins? Talk to me how you're feeling about that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's exciting. You know, I think the entirety of the country is just delighted to be back at the big dance. That was the last time we were in a World Cup, in fact. So it's been a tough time to be a South African fan. But we are absolutely excited. I think we're licking our lips for maybe a little bit of revenge. Yes, we tied that game against Mexico, but for us that was equivalent to a loss because had we beaten them, we went on to beat France. We could have made it to the second round, which would have been the first time in our history as well. So we're absolutely delighted. We're excited. And we have a little bit of belief. I mean, it's tempered belief, but we're ready to go. And I think we're ready to throw everything at the Mexicans, at the South Koreans, and probably the Danish. And so, man, look, we're rearing to go.
He looks like he's ready for a fight. Mbizo looks like he's ready to start squaring up. I love it. But what I will say is you alluded to something at the top of the show, or the top of the interview, which was, you know, the motivation after the disappointment in the AFCON. So is it extra motivation or is it extra pressure at this stage?
I wouldn't say it's extra pressure. In fact, I think we put a lot of pressure on the national team to do well in the AFCON because of our previous showing, getting to the semifinals. Obviously, we lost out to Nigeria, but we beat Morocco on the way 2-0. So I think everybody had the expectation that we'd get back at least to the semifinals, and we didn't quite do that. And I think we showed some mental and emotional frailties, and so tactical frailties as well, as a matter of fact. So I think we're tempering our expectations a little bit. I think most of the nation just is looking towards a good showing. We do believe we have the ability to beat a Mexico, a South Korea. It wouldn't be easy, but of course we do believe we can, but we are tempering expectations a little bit. We don't want to put too much on the boys. We want them to go out there, feel free to express themselves, and really demonstrate what South African football is capable of.
And Mbizo, what about the players? So, you know, obviously Ronwen Williams, we've seen him not only at the last couple of AFCONs, but also at the Club World Cup with Mamelodi Sundowns, Burnley's Lyle Foster. But who else should we be keeping an eye out on for?
Yeah, it's an exciting time for South African football. I think we have a couple of players who may capture the world's attention and imagination. I think you guys are already familiar now with his playing in his football. Bokazi, who's been at Chicago Fire, excellent player. I think touted to be one of South Africa's leaders in the future, potentially captain of the national team for a long time to come. He's a solid defender and he's taken on the best, including shutting down, to a certain extent, Mohamed Salah against Egypt. He's done really well against some of the top players in African football. He's a top defender and versatile as well. Can play center back, can play left back, and a really exciting player who I think South Africa is a huge fan of, and he's probably our most prized possession at this current juncture in time, is Relebohile Mofokeng. He's a top class player, can play on the wings, can play at number 10, and the entire nation has been wanting him to start for quite some time. Hugo Broos has been sort of protecting him, not putting too much pressure on him, but I think the nation is ready for him to take a starring role, probably at the 10 position, and he's just an incredibly exciting player. Obviously, he has been signed by Rock Nation, so he's an exciting young talent. And I'm a huge fan of Oswin Apolis as well, who's an out-and-out winger, and I think an archetypical South African winger. Clever, quick, very good on the ball with a decent shot, decent finishing. And so these are players who I think are really standout players who could do really, really well for the national team at the World Cup.
And Mbizo, I'm going to have you repeat that name one more time because it's like when I speak Spanish way too fast, and I think I'm speaking normal and people understand me. One more time.
Relebohile Mofokeng.
Relebohile Mofokeng.
He just wanted to do it.
Close.
And Mbizo, you know I'm always going to dive into the tactics board of you because I want to know the details of the team. You study it inside out. This is why we're putting them on the spotlight. So what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses as we head towards the World Cup?
I think what we've shown is we're a solid and consistent team and quite cohesive. I think the team works well together. We don't have any global superstars, but we do have a lot of players with Champions League experience. Obviously, a lot of champions with Sundowns, but players who play for top teams in South Africa, like Orlando Pirates, who's another mainstay in the CAF Champions League. We play very attractive football, I think, or at least we're capable of it. We put the ball on the ground. Again, we have clever technical players who are quite creative, but we tend to struggle without the ball, and I think that's where we've been exposed, particularly when we play against some of the giants of African football. When you think about teams like Nigeria, who we struggled against during qualifying, Egypt we struggled against at the AFCON, and then obviously Cameroon knocked us out. So I think we really do need to improve mentally and emotionally when we play against those giants. It's been really, really tough in those big games, and to be able to play long periods without the ball, I think that's our main weakness, because we like the ball, we want possession, we want the ball at our feet, more so actually I think than teams like Nigeria and Cameroon. But again, their mental fortitude, their experience spoke a little bit louder than our football, and I think that's where we might struggle in the World Cup. If we improve there, I think we have a great chance of at least making it to the second round, and again, just making South Africans proud of South African football for the first time in a long time.
I'm so glad you spoke about the South African culture and the people right there, because explain what it means to the people. Like this qualification, this process. 2010, as Nico alluded to, was an iconic moment. I still remember how infamous that World Cup was. But now you get an opportunity to go on the road and showcase your culture. What does it mean to the people to have this moment?
I mean, again, it's absolutely huge. South Africans consider themselves some of the giants of African football. Again, we've won AFCON, and we got to the final the very next edition. Of course, we ended up losing, I think it was to Egypt. But we consider ourselves among the giants of African football. We have one of the best leagues on the continent, considered one of the best leagues in the world on a global stage. So we believe in our football. We believe in our skills. We believe in our champagne and shoe shine football, we call it. Our Gassi style football, we call it. And so we really want people to be able to at least acknowledge that South Africans have talent. We've produced some big players. You mentioned Benny McCarthy there, but we've had others, Stephen Pienaar. We've had others, so we really want people to look at us again and say, hey, this is a team that can play football, and this is one of the best teams on the African continent. So it's huge for us. And again, South Africans love to dance. We love to party. It's also an excuse for that. It's also an excuse to fill the streets, to fill the bars, to fill the clubs, to fill homes with joy and laughter for the first time again in a long time at the big dance.
And Mbizo, I will say, if South Africa scores against Mexico, there's a prime opportunity to do a nice little Tshabalala dance. Go do the repeat. Hey. It's gotta happen 100%. And Mbizo, thank you very much.
Man. Lucas Radaby, Quinton Fortune. So I'm telling you, man, this is some legends. Appreciate it.
We've had players. We've had some serious players. And back in the day, during apartheid, when we couldn't play, we had even better players. We didn't have an opportunity to show them then, but we have an opportunity now.
An incredible nation, incredible history back at the World Cup. Mbizo, thank you very much. All right, let's go through the schedule coming up then, because they do have a tricky group. Mind you that UEFA Path D is the Czechia, Ireland, Denmark, North Macedonia match. What do you think of this, JD?
Yeah, I do think it's a tricky group, but I also think it's quite an open group. We spoke about their history of Mexico already, so we already know in terms of two nations, Mexico now have the home advantage, and you know the Mexican culture. We talk about culture of South Africa. If you're talking about a culture in this region of the world that's going to be behind their team, Mexico want to show out because they'll obviously be in the host. We still have unaware in terms of what this is, so this is still a developing subject.
So it's going to be a European team, though, right?
We know that already, and then it's going to come with its own qualifications. But at the same time, I think if I'm South Africa, I would look at it and say, why couldn't we top this? Why couldn't we qualify? Why couldn't they? There's a potential in terms of what they've demonstrated, maybe not so much in the AFCON, but necessarily looking at these teams, who are we supposed to be scared of? Like, who would you, if you were in the South African camp, be afraid of in this question mark?
Not afraid. I don't think South Africa goes into this group afraid, because I don't think you have one of those football powerhouses.
Yeah.
You know, Italy, France, Spain, England. I'm so used to it, right? Argentina, Brazil, right? You do have Mexico at home in the Azteca. I think this is going to be an extremely difficult game just because Mexico's playing with pressure to deliver. They're going to play with a lot of motivation as well. But just say it was Czechia, Ireland, Denmark. I don't think North Macedonia is going to qualify, to be honest, right? South Korea. I wonder what the bookies are going to say. South Africa might be the fourth favorite in that group.
They could be, but the odds, I reckon, will be a lot closer than people give themselves credit for.
Agree.
Because of the sheer fact of what you spoke about with Mexico, we know in terms of looking at the quality of their squad and what they bring. But Nico, you also know the adverse. Sometimes when you're the host and you have that opening game, the pressure can be too much. We've seen that historically. Think about France and all those other nations. It doesn't necessarily always work out how you want it to in front of you when you're in your front yard, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, they have pressure to deliver, for sure, Mexico.
Pressure.
So that you do raise a fair point. Sure, bookies might have South Africa as the fourth favorite, but it is pretty tight. And again, reminder, third place teams, not all of them, but many will qualify. So similar case, I mean, we did the South Korea spotlight again. Just like you were saying, South Africa walks into this grouping and goes, I'm unafraid from any of these rivals. Same goes for South Korea.
Yep,
same goes for Mexico. And same goes for Czechia, Ireland, Denmark, or North Macedonia.
This could be the most exciting group within the World Cup, just because in the group stage, because of the sheer fact of how open it is. Regardless of what the bookies say, you know there's always an upset somewhere.
All right, so that is our spotlight for Bafana Bafana. South Africa is back at the World Cup for the first time since 2010. Thanks for watching this video from Morning Footy. For all news and insights regarding leagues around the world like EFL, Serie A, and all UEFA competitions, both men's and women's, don't forget to sign up for Paramount+.